If you thought you could buy back one of your dad's cars, would you? Tune in to see if this nerd did just that.
Get those words!
Holy free holies, it's time for a brand new episode of The Bid Nerd, your daily nerd out on the most interesting car of the day from all the automotive enthusiast auction sites. My name is John Polnik, along with my partner, Michael Deeb. Welcome to the show. What's up, Michael Deeb?
JP, I have big vested interest in the car that we're going to cover today, and I don't want to tease ahead too much, but yeah, I'm really excited. Happy to be here. Thank God we're doing a show. Let's go. And by the time this thing goes live, we should have 1,000 subscribers. How's that going to make us feel?
I'm hoping by the time this one goes, because at the time of recording this, we're like literally a dozen subscribers away from 1,000. So yes, absolutely. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. If you're new to the show and you're checking us out for the first time, what we do is we find the most interesting car from all these auction sites. We have a conversation about that car, and then we predict what's going to happen with that car's auction. Then stick around. On the other half of the show, we reconcile our poor predictions with what actually happens. We go into the future and we show you what the actual results were, and we discuss why we think the results are as they are. And you can play along. It's just like The Price is Right. So when we make our predictions, you put your predictions in the comments below and play along with us, and you can find out how good at bid nerding you are, and you can become part of the nerd herd and the nerd nation that's growing super fast. So thanks for hanging out. All right, Michael D., before we get to the most interesting car of the day, can you real quickly talk about our good friends over at Godden Classic?
Yes, Godden Porsche of Las Vegas, Nevada is the very first Porsche Classic partner in North America. Porsche of Germany vetted them and selected them to be the first dealership because they have the passion, they have the personnel and the expertise to help you with parts, to help you with service, and to help you with buying or selling your favorite classic Porsche. If you need something for any classic Porsche that's ever been made, call our friends at Godden Porsche of Las Vegas and remind them that the Bid Nerds sent you.
All right, let's get to the most interesting car of the day. What are we talking about here, Michael Deeb?
So JP, I was just perusing as I do, and I found on Bring a Trailer our 1972 BMW 3.0CS with a 4-speed manual out of Encinitas, California. And I continued to read and thought, wow, this is really cool. It reminds me of a car my father used to own. And it was interesting because this car is said to have been in long-term California ownership. It was in Carmel by the Sea, and then the car went to the Netherlands for 2 years, and then it came back from the Netherlands in 2012 and has been in San Diego ever since. And they said that in the early 2000s, they believe this car had been repainted in its original shade of silver. And it's interesting because my dad's car was repainted, only it was repainted in the 90s, not in the early 2000s. But these guys, the guy who's selling it doesn't know when the car was repainted, just that it was. This car has a blue leather interior. My dad's had that. This car has the Chromadora wheels with the little tiny hubcaps, exactly like my father's. This car has a wooden shifter handle and a Nardi wheel, exactly like my dad's. And this car has Weber carburetors. And I was like, oh, shucks, my dad had the original Zeniths. Well, the original Zeniths are included in the sale of this car. John, I am sitting here looking at this car, and the more I look at it, the more I can tell you there, however unlikely as it is, there's a chance that this is my father's old car. It's not likely, but there's a chance. The guy who owned it in long-term ownership in the early 2000s until the car was sold and went to the Netherlands was in Carmel by the Sea. That's 2 hours from now. I don't remember who my father sold the car to, but it's entirely possible that the owner that's not on record prior to this was my dad, and I remember my dad's car fondly. And everything about this car is exactly like my dad's was, including the repaint and the steering wheel and the whole shebang. So this car is really cool. These cars are beautiful coupes. My father used to, wax poetically about his knowledge of cars. A lot of what I learned from him. And his definition of a coupe was 2 doors, 4 windows, and no bar. And he always said that this was one of the most beautiful coupes ever made. And I tend to agree with him. I remember when every time he would go out of town, I would run down to his apartment and steal the keys for this car, and I would drive it up and down Union Street and Chestnut Street because I just wanted to be seen in it. It's such an elegant car. It was so beautiful. And it was actually kind of fun to drive. The 4-speed was kind of a bummer. Always wish it had a 5. The cars always looked to be slower than they were. These aren't real sports cars. These are real Grand Touring cars. This car would never keep up with a Porsche from in period by any stretch of the imagination. But that's really not the point of this car. If you were going to the wine country for the weekend, this would be a great car to take you and your date, and you could put your bags in the back. And it'd just be a fun place to hang out for the weekend. I don't know that I'd want a daily driver this car, but I would certainly love to own it again. But right down to the cocoa mats, that little double circle air cleaner that covers the 2 carburetors, all the specification that's on this car is exactly like the way my dad's car was in back in the 90s, and I remember it fondly. So this car really kind of tickled my fancy, and I thought, why not take a chance on it and just have fun with it. I have photographs of my dad's old car, but I don't know if I have any paperwork that would tell me if the VIN number was the same to actually verify if this was his or not. But it kind of doesn't matter to me. I just thought it'd be fun to look at this one. I know we've covered a few of these in the past, but when I say to you, oh, my dad used to have one, this is that car almost identically. So what do you think about these, John? Again, I know that we can't compare them to other in-period cars that we love from Ferrari and Porsche because this car isn't a car that's going to keep up on a rally or a back road. But again, I think it's missing the point of what these cars are designed to do. So any love for the old 3.0 CS Coupe? And what do you think of the silver and blue livery? I can't remember who designed the body on these, so shame on me. But I want to say it might be an Italian designer. I could be wrong on that. But it's interesting that they, I think the Nardi wheels were an option, and that these cars came on Italian Cromadora wheels is also kind of cracks me up a little bit. So JP, I send it back to you. What do you think? What do you like these things or no? Yay or nay?
I mean, how can you not? This is your dad's right. It's one of the most beautiful cars ever made. Absolutely. How cool is that? How amazing is it? It's possible.
It is.
Like, how many of these could there be?
Yeah, it's unlikely, but it's plausible.
What is unlikely? What are the things that are making you think that it's not?
Well, that there's like freaking 7 million people that live in Northern California, or in the Bay Area.
But there's not 7 million of these cars that have been repainted. The guy is telling you that it was repainted at some point. How do you know he's right? He doesn't know. He wasn't there when it was painted. You were.
No, but I think he's like, he heard that it was repainted is what it reads to me. And he goes, I think it was in the early 2000s. I'm like, no, it was repainted in the mid 90s. Yeah. Cars Dawidiak, Walter Dawidiak sells really cool cars like Canepa and Fantasy Junction here in the Bay Area. So Walter had a guy that came in and wanted to apply for a job to the body shop. And Walter had purchased this 3.0 CS and it was in need of paint. It was prepped and everything. And so the guys auditioned to get hired as an employee in the body shop was to paint the BMW. So the guy did a magnificent job on it. And so my dad was hanging around with Walter and saw the car in the early 90s, I think it was. And they did this incredible job. So my dad bought the car. And dude, I'm telling you, I think my dad paid $7,000 for the car and sold it.
Changed, right?
Yeah. Like $7,900, I think he paid for the car. And then he sold it, like 7 years later for like, I can't remember, 11 or 14,000
How do you not
bucks.
try to buy this car? I
think
cool? It's more likely that it is than it isn't.
I telling you, I found this car last night and I was like, I'm gonna, like, JP will appreciate this. Like, we're watching this car. I want to see what happens.
You gotta do some more sleuthing, man. This is that's special, man.
The good news is I have 4 days until it closes at auction, so maybe I'll contact the seller and ask him if he has any other paperwork that if he knows if there was a previous owner in San Francisco. It's a bummer it doesn't have a 17-digit VIN to be able to trace that. That'd be really cool. Yeah. But anyway, a really nice car. The guy who's selling it is saying that it's one of the best driving ones they had. He said that the conversion to the dual Webers over the other carbs that are on there, the Zeniths, I think it is, makes a big improvement. They're cleaner they're easier to operate, and they run better, and they do a little power. And they said the intake noise is also really cool. So all the benefits. So really good comments, really good feedback. The thing is, John, values on these cars are all over the place. This car could retail, like fully retail, under 100 grand. This car could retail at 150. I have no idea where this car is worth today. I do remember my dad's is really nice, and this car looks to be really nice. So anyways, I don't know what else you want to talk about.
Yeah, well, anyone with taste knows that this is a great looking car. Do you remember the movie Fracture with Anthony Hopkins and Ryan Gosling? Man, look up that movie. Whether or not you like the movie or not, it's one of the like.
Is that like a kidnap movie thing? Did they steal?
No, it's a murder mystery. Anthony Hopkins is he's like this genius metallurgist guy who works. His job is to determine why airplanes crash. Like he works.
Oh wow.
He's like a consultant for the FAA or whatever. So whenever they try, he's like this super genius. And he's super loaded, and the cop so Anthony's wife gets murdered, and he's charged with the murder, and the cop whose job it is Ryan Gosling. Actually, I don't think he's the cop. I think he's the lawyer who's going to try him. It's one of these kind of like Usual Suspects type things where it's got lots of twists and turns, but it's one of these movies that is all about aesthetics. Like that's this, like, it's almost like a character of the movie. Anthony Hopkins drives a CGT. That's his daily driver, right? That's what he freaking drives. His wife drives like one of those, the Air. Remember they had the Boxster that was the only car that came in that CGT color at the time. That was her car. And his house where she was murdered is like the most insane mid-century. Like modern. If you had $1 trillion and could hire someone, there's even a line in the movie when Ryan Gosling, who is, he was a prosecutor, and the whole thing is he's about to get this super job as a defense lawyer in the biggest firm in town, right? And so they're like giving him all this money. They're like, how do you want your office done, right? You've got this mad budget. We're going to make your office however you want it. And they're like, what style do you want? And he's like, and he shows them pictures of like the murder scene, this style. He doesn't know what it is, but he's like, make it like that. And as it turns out, Ryan Gosling drives a 3.0 CS. So that brings it all together. But these cars are beautiful. Definitely one of the top 10 most beautiful cars. And I'm with your dad. He's absolutely right about, B pillars are for chumps. There's only a few other cars that you can think of that have that. And, me being a big Cabrio fan, driving a coupe with a roof, you get a sunroof, and then you get those, the pillarless windows like that where you can roll the back windows down the front. It's such a great driving experience.
It's awesome.
It's similar to a cab, but better.
I love driving this car in the summer with my dad, and the windows down and all the air coming in. It was really, really cool. And the car, like I'm just gonna say it, JP. The photos here are terrible. Like it looks like I took them, which is to knock them, because there was something about my dad's car that was so elegant and so pretty, and I don't feel like any of that is conveyed by any of the shots taken for this listing, and that to me is a huge miss on behalf of the seller or the selling dealer, that they didn't go get a higher lens and pay a photographer to take really good photos of what is an epic car, and this car, you could be mistaken for just scrolling through BAT and missing this car completely, and you're leaving money on the table. That's a shame, So anyway.
Well, I mean, there you go. That's going to equal a better opportunity for you to buy the car, right? The movie trailer for Fracture. I don't know if there's any car stuff in it. I'm trying to find the car.
Look how young Gosling looks.
I know. There's her Boxster. And there's come on, this is a really good movie, man. I'm gonna have to go and watch this tonight. It actually is a great like murder thriller twisty kind of like.
I don't think I saw this, so it makes me want to I want to watch it, and it's great because I don't know what's gonna happen. So that's awesome.
regardless of the cars, it really is a fantastic movie. All right, guys, let us know what you think in the comments below.
Put your bid in, because I need to know what I'm going to spend on this thing.
Yeah, what's your bid? What's this thing going to bring?
All right, so JP, our car is sitting at $29,999 with about 4 days until it closes. And like I said, trying to use my cheat sheets, values for these cars are end results, like actual, even if you go to classic.com, results for these cars are over. It seems like it's the type of car you'd really want to inspect in person yourself, or have somebody look at for you to really try to help you assess the values, because this car could be worth 80 grand. It could be worth 160 grand. I'm going to give you my bid, but also know that I'm bidding with my heart, not my head on this one. So I'm going to say $90,000. And it's one of those like long fly balls that stays in the park, because if it goes over 100 grand, I'm like, there's no way I'm buying this car. But maybe if it goes under 100, I might be a player for it. So I'm going to give it to you at $90,000. But John, if it's as nice as they're describing, it could easily be $120,000, $130,000 car. But this car could also stall out and possibly sell for 80 or 85. So I send it to you, $90,000. JP, what's your bid?
Parking it right under at 85, hoping that you get a chance to buy it. I think
that'd be awesome.
I wish my father, my dad had some cool cars before I was born. I was probably conceived in a Corvette of I think a 64 or 63, something like that, convertible. Yep. But I have no idea whatever happened to that car, where it is, if it even still exists. And he had, it was a hot rod when he built it, with the big engine, the blower, and all that stuff. So there's no chance that I will ever be able to buy, one of his cool cars when he was young. None of the cars that he had while I was alive are cars that I would want. They're all, my dad it's so funny. He was a car guy when he was a kid, but once he became a family man, he could care less. So, so that to have an opportunity to get something that was your dad's, and something that's actually cool like that, holy cow, man, that's just freaking awesome. So good luck to you, Michael Deeb. I'm sure all of you guys out there in the Nerd Herd will be rooting for him on this one. What do you guys think he's going to have to pay if he wants it? Now's the time to plug in your bid, and we'll be back right after this to find out if Michael Deeb is the new owner of this 3-liter CS. How cool would that be? We'll see in the future. Hey guys, I gotta tell you about our friends Godden Porsche of Las Vegas and Godden Classic. If you're looking for a new Porsche or a classic, you gotta call our friend Steve at Godden. Save yourself the hassle of screwing around with all the auctions like we always talk about, and just talk to Steve. He'll find you the classic Porsche you're looking for. Godden Porsche of Las Vegas. Hey guys, thanks for sticking around for Bid Nerd, your daily nerd out on the most interesting car of the day. Michael Deeb, are you excited about Vegas Auto Fest in Las Vegas? I'm wearing the shirt today. September 16th.
Absolutely. I'm always excited about Vegas Auto Fest because I seem to make every other one. So I think I'm due. I always love to come out, and I always want to make a big weekend out of it, and then stuff always happens. But this year it's no holds barred. I'm in, and kind of can't wait. I mean, Monterey's right in front of me, so I'm not like droning on like fixated on AutoFest, but it is on my radar, and I will definitely be there. I hope to drive out in my little white car, and stick it on the lawn, and then maybe leave it with like Carl's place, leave it with Tony Mazzagatti or something, and have him sort it out.
There you go.
It needs some love, so maybe he could do that, and then you can drive it to Rensport for me or something like that.
That's an idea. We got all kinds of good ideas. It's going to be a busy from between Monterey and Rensport and AutoFest. Lots of different cars. So I feel like there's a rally in there somewhere.
Sure.
The DWA has a rally like right after Rensport reunion. I mean, it's just like non-freaking stop. But we'll figure it all out. All right. Well, Michael Deeb, what happened with this little BMW?
So, all right. So a lot to report on this car. So if you remember JP, not only is this a beautiful car, but I actually think this car belonged to my dad. And nothing since we did the first half of this show has changed my thinking on that. So what we're talking about is a 72 BMW 3.0 CS with a 4-speed manual offered on Bring a Trailer out of Encinitas, California, somewhere in Southern California. Really nice car with an older respray, silver with blue leather. I love the car. It's exactly like my dad's had. Now, I thought that this car had a chance to go to, I said $90,000. Like some 3.0 CSs bring comfortably into like $120,000, $130,000 range, and they're not even CSLs. But those are the really nice ones. This looked more like a driver quality one, and so 90 grand was my number. You said 85,000 bucks, and our car failed to sell at $63,500 on a pretty respectable 40 bids. So being me, I called the guy like within minutes of the close of the auction and left a message on their voicemail down there in Southern California, the dealer, the selling dealer. To his credit, this guy was out in the car and pulled over and called me right back. And we had a very nice conversation. And I just told him candidly, I said, look, I'm not in the market for a BMW 3.0 CS, but if this is my dad's old car, I do hold some interest in owning it. So he said that he had a couple of people that had reached out to him on like sort of direct message and said, for whatever various reasons people are the way they are, that they were calls from the East Coast and they said, I'd be interested in buying this car, but like, let's talk. If it doesn't sell, I'll buy it. So it sounds like those guys want to lowball him. I said, look, go ahead and make your calls and see if anybody's a real taker on the car. And if not, then let's talk again like the following week. And we'll see if you still have it and we can make a little deal on the car, maybe I can pull some money together because I would like to own it. I do think it's his car. So the big question, of course, was what do you have it listed for? And JP, he literally had it listed for $87,000. So I don't know what the reserve was. But that's his retail number, which literally splits you and I right down the middle. So I thought that was pretty amazing. I said, I told him, I said, well, my partner and I do a podcast, and we covered the car on the show. And as we did that, like I said 90 and he said 85, and you could hear this guy was so happy to hear that like he didn't price it like out of like the stratosphere. It was really funny. I wish you were on the phone call because he got a big kick out of that. I was like, man, we were right over it. I said 90 and my partner said 85. So I said, we're right in the wheelhouse. But yeah, anyway, I thought that was all pretty funny. Now, of course, I was sick all the following week. So I never followed back up with the guy. And as you know, I'm looking at a little Alpha race car, which is more of a hobby thing than just a car for the garage. So I don't know if I'll really be able to pursue this car, but if he didn't sell it and he's asking 87, then, I'm sure a deal can be made in the low 80s or $80,000. That's not a bad price for what looks like a really nice car. And if I got my dad's old car back, that'd be cool. But bad timing, man. Timing's everything.
Yeah. Timing,
I wish I had
space,
every car.
Money, all those things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, and your dad owned a lot of cool cars, so
sure.
you could get yourself in all kinds of trouble with if you tried to buy every one of your dad's old cars. Yeah, I don't know, man. I think there's a softening happening a bit. I mean, the heat is off, right? Cars are not burning up to be sold. Even the collector stuff, we're still seeing big numbers. People are still speculating. There are people that are still kind of using this as hedges for bets and stuff like that. But I think money right now is just like trying to figure out where to go, what to do. Nobody really knows what's up. And the regular car market is just a disaster. I mean, if you're selling F-150s or Mercedes electric cars or anything, at a normal car lot, your things are getting close to back to the way they used to be, where there was a lot of inventory out there and not enough buyers. And now combine that with much higher interest rates and stuff like that, cars like this are just going to be harder and harder to sell. Unless your classic car is something that's really, really special, or it was your dad's. There's just, finding it's pretty tough to sell a classic car to find, somebody's dad who used to own the car and that might still want it. Because let's face it, these days, a lot of not Gen Xers, we're Gen Xers, but let's call it the millennials that are inheriting cars like this are just immediately offloading them. They don't even want them.
Yeah.
So
they don't want them at all. Yeah. It's
that
really
nostalgia is just not there.
Your point's really good, John, about the market though softening. A day in life of a bid nerd host. I get the BAT email every day, and in the evening I usually go through it and look at all the cars, and I like the ones that I want to return to, and that's how I narrow my search for when it comes time to pick the cars for the show. So I get text alerts. So throughout the day, if I pick 5 cars out of every 100 that gets introduced on a particular day's email, throughout a given day, I get 5 alerts about cars closing, and if it's something I'm really interested, I'll watch it close. But most of the time, at the end of the day, I'll go and open up those 5 texts and see what those cars actually sold for. Well, the last few weeks, John, a lot of stuff that we've been watching on BAT is failing to sell.
Yeah.
And that's really interesting. And my theory, and I have no way to quantify this, and I really want to hear what your theory might be on that. Because me, I tend to look at the same stuff all the time, right? Alphas and Dinos and all the air-cooled Porsches, and occasionally like a cool Jeep or a Bronco or something. It's the same snot all the time. But now the stuff isn't selling. I think the market is changing faster than than BAT can reestablish a new sort of thought process for their reserves. Like, I don't think their reserves have caught up to the changing market. So somebody comes in and says, I want $100,000 for my BMW 3.0CS. And they don't realize that they're, like the BAT people that are issuing these reserves. I don't know. Like, and I know there's smart people there, like some of the guys that are in charge of the teams are really bright minds, but I just think that there's so many people and so many numbers that they have to quantify that I just don't know if their reserves are a true reflection of what today's market is. And it's changing fast. I think you're right. I think the market is really softening up. Monterey will come, and then I think it's going to be a cold winter for sellers,
Yeah, that's for darn sure. All right. Well, what do you guys think out there? Let us know in the comments below. Did you guys get this one right? Did you do a better job at it than Michael Deeb? I will say something about that, failed to sell. When you look at the results page on Bring a Trailer, it, just has all the cars and it says, sold for. But I tend to, I don't look at the cars that are listing nearly as much as I look at the results. And what I typically do when I'm scrolling through the results, I'm not looking at how much stuff sold for. I'm just looking for the stuff that got bid to. That's like all I'm looking at is what didn't sell and at what number, and was it a surprise? We've seen some pretty crazy numbers on some cars that we definitely would have. Like there was that 911R tried to sell our friend's wide body kind of RSR 3.8 thing. That any one of us would have said, oh yeah, that's a $1.50 car. And it didn't even make 90, so it clearly failed to sell by didn't even make half the money that the seller wanted.
Right. And he consigned it with 911R, which I think you would agree is arguably, without question, the best seller on BAT as far as the photographs, presentation, the video, and the audio. I mean, they do a fantastic job. So if he couldn't break 100 with that car, where does our friend go to sell it? That's one of those scary, like, come to Jesus moments where you're like, God, I got a firm grip on this car. So I don't know. Man, that's brutal.
It's tough. That is the biggest, that's the scariest part about selling a car on one of these auction sites, is that if it doesn't sell, now what? Which is why we say time and time again to people who are trying to sell their cars, if it's getting close to reserve, just lower your damn reserve. Pull the reserve, jump out of get out.
Yeah, my history, I didn't sell Ruby. I was lucky to sell the car after the auction. And then, a year and a half later, when I went to sell a couple cars on BAT, I had you in my corner and you were like, pull the reserve. And we pulled them on both of them. One, it went right by where the reserve was and went on to maybe make a little more money than I would have expected, which was nice. But the other one, we pulled the reserve and it just barely sold. In fact, BAT paid me to make that car go away. And I'm forever grateful that was the case. So, it's not easy. It's tough out there, especially when the market has been as volatile as it has over the last 3 years.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, let us know in the comments below. Nerd Herd, we love you guys. Obviously, we made it to 1,000 subscribers, so we're going to start doing, I think we're going to try to do the live show maybe this weekend, maybe this Sunday, or maybe this Monday evening. We're going to coordinate a little bit off air, and we'll get that going. But yeah, we're going to start doing that very, very soon. We've got the tools, we've got the talent. I don't know if we got the talent, but we got the tools, and I don't really know if I know how to use the tools. All right, we got problems, but we're trying. We're right there. It's going to happen.
Tune in. Join us if you can. You know, if you're a fan of the show, when we go live, we'd love to have you come in and comment. We'll try to interact in real time. It should be fun. Add another dimension to this hot mess we call a podcast.
See you guys.
No!